It is said that when rivers flow to the ocean, water is wasted because every drop is not being used by people. Bryan Piazza proposes the opposite view with a story and example from the U.S. Gulf of Mexico coast on how science can make the world your oyster.
One morning, I was sitting on my father-in-law's patio overlooking Lake Ray Hubbard just outside of Dallas, Texas. The teeth of a drought were solidly clamped on Texas. Water levels in the lake were already 8 to 12 feet down. Boats were sitting high and dry, the whole bit. He was concerned. "You know, one thing I just can't understand," he said to me, "is why Louisiana just wastes all that water to the coast in the Gulf of Mexico instead of sending some of it over here to help us out." Well, Louisiana does have more water than Texas. In fact, the Sabine River on the border of Louisiana and Texas already provides drinking water to Texas. So I have to admit, I was a little bit annoyed. That perception of wasted water annoys me. That water is not wasted. The oysters need it. Now, I grew up in Wisconsin, and until I moved to Louisiana 23 years ago, I had never even seen an oyster, much less eaten one. I could not believe how something that looked like a rock could taste so good. And since that time, I study oysters, I talk about them, I eat them, and I work to restore them across the Gulf of Mexico coast. Oysters are amazing. They're filter feeders, gobbling up algae and removing dirt and excess nutrients from the water. In fact, each adult oyster can filter about 2 gallons of water every hour. And oysters also create the temperate version of coral reefs, providing critical habitat for animals like fish, shrimp, and crabs. And these reefs also serve as important wave breaks, protecting marsh shorelines from erosion. And like corals, oysters are signals of a healthy environment. Because oysters need a mix of both freshwater and saltwater to thrive, their presence is a sign of healthy coastal marshes. So you see, my annoyance with my father-in-law's question wasn't because he's unintelligent or a jerk or anything like that. It was because he values freshwater and oysters as two separate things, as many people do. But in my world, the two are intricately linked. But I had no way of showing him what I was talking about. So then I began to think about this problem like a scientist. Science can help us get to our values by creating pictures from complex information and showing us hidden linkages. But not many people think like that. In fact, as scientists, we're often taught not to talk about values, but we must, especially with the relationship between water and oysters, because oysters represent a lot of different values. The oyster fisher wants healthy oysters and disease-free oysters so he can sell more of them. The restaurant owner and chef, she wants oysters to be consistent and fresh and available. Tourists want prices low so they can eat more oysters. My father-in-law and millions of people in Dallas want fresh water so they can drink, water their lawns, and enjoy their boats. A redfish, a young redfish wants a reef so he has a place to hide and doesn't get eaten. And coastal landowners in Louisiana, they want their shorelines protected so they can hang on to their land. So everybody has needs, but we had no way of seeing how these needs interact. So our team created an online system. It's called the Freshwater Network. It uses science to explore all of these complex linkages that happen when we try to manage water, and also the trade-offs that our values create. In fact, we created one app called Oyster Flows in direct response to my father-in-law's question. Oyster Flows allows you to control flow down the Sabine River on the Texas and Louisiana border. You can either send more water down or you can hold water back. And Oyster Flows allows you to see the effects of your decision on the health of oyster reefs located in Sabine Lake, 100 miles downstream at the coast. With Oyster Flows, you're not going to know that you're actually interacting with complex water flow and statistical models. and even scientific information on oyster physiology, you're just going to see results. And what you're going to see is that water is never wasted at the coast. But you're also going to see that there may be times when we can use some of that water to meet other needs, like drinking water supply, all while keeping oyster reefs and other coastal habitats healthy. And we expanded oyster flows in Louisiana to the Calcasieu River, where industry is growing very rapidly because of the availability of water. And we can export these tools worldwide for use in showing why the things that we care about matter. And also these types of tools that are based on science can be used to help design solutions that work. Now I know I picked on my father-in-law a little bit today, but he's a proxy for everyone. We don't want just this thing or that thing, we want it all. I think that's what Shakespeare meant when he said, "The world is your oyster." But science can help us figure out when the world is actually our oyster and when our world will destroy oysters and everything that is linked to them. Thank you.